It's your girl, Lady Shell, Ford Entertainment Magazine, and I'm sitting here with my brother. It's one thing to kind of like read about someone's success story. It's another thing to like watch someone start their journey and then get through the challenges of life and then actually make it and living in their dreams. So I just want to say I feel so proud of you. Every time I see your name pop up anywhere, I'm like, I know this guy. That's my dog.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, and also thank you for inviting me to be on your cover your magazine. So it's always feels great to
Way
be,
overdue.
um, part of the community. And when the community locally looks in, I do a lot of stuff outside of the community as I've grown in my industry. But it's always nice to still have that root where I live.
Yes, it's because it's an inspiration. It's motivating to everyone who's following their purpose, following their dreams to actually keep going because you see that perseverance pays off. So let's backtrack a little bit and let everybody know like who you are and what do you do and where do we know you from?
All right, so my name is Sean Casey. Most people know me in the city as Twin, and I am the owner and founder of Twin Cutz Barbershop, which I established in 2010.
Yes. And I remember like you were on the scene a lot. Like your networking grind was always on point. You were at every party. And I was reading an interview you did before, and that was a key point of your growth. It was the networking. So like let's dig into that a little bit more on how like what was the key to getting getting to now where you have 7 shops. And we're going to get a little bit more details on what you're doing because I know you're doing a lot. You're also teaching. But let's
Mhm.
talk about the networking part of your journey real quick.
Absolutely. So I moved here from New York in 2006. I had a relationship in Fort Myers because I went to high school here. I moved to Fort Myers back in the mid 90s to go to high school from New York. And while I was in high school, my girlfriend at the time, she got pregnant. So I always had a relationship coming back and forth to Fort Myers, and my grandparents lived here as well. So I had went back to New York at the time to get my barber license and just kind of get focused and get my head straight. And in 2006, I made a major move to come to Fort Myers. One being I wanted a little bit closer relationship with my son. It was always going back and forth long distance. I felt like I just needed to settle down and get a little bit focused. But it was such a change from living in such a, you know, populated urban community that growing up with millions of things to do and coming to a town like Fort Myers that's a little bit slower paced, especially in 2006 compared to what we see today. So that being said, when I moved, I worked at a barbershop called Platinum Creation. A buddy of mine who owned a shop, his name was Rodney Jackson. I went to high school with him at Cypress Lake High School. He had his shop opened and he was like, yeah, come work for me. So I stopped and I started working at his location. And unfortunately, he passed away a year later. He always had a heart condition, so it was really unfortunate to see him because he had so much drive and inspiration at the time. He was absolutely true innovator himself because before he passed, he was the one already starting to scale his business. So, unfortunately, if he didn't pass, I would have loved to see his growth. And I wasn't even on that at that time. I'm moving here and I want to open up a shop myself one day. I'm leaving New York and I got to work at a place, build up a clientele and work and get my shop. So what I did needed to do to build up my clientele while I was slow, pay my bills and take care of my son was how can I make money behind the chair, cover my costs, and make a little bit extra? While I lived in New York, I worked for a record company called the Lyricist Lounge as an intern, where I used to stand on the corners in Times Square, pass out flyers all around the city. I was always networking in club promotion. This allowed me to really learn and understand guerrilla marketing, handing out flyers, business cards, and everything, and most importantly, building relationships. So I took that same type of structure and brought it to Fort Myers and had the ambition of opening up my shop the same way you would run a record label. So one of my first early clientels, he was a DJ in the city. His name was DJ Spiff. We would know him as DJ Dito back at that time. And he was from New York as well. So we shared that common interest. And he said, you know what's missing in this area? And, a stage for performances for local artists. And that I learned from working with Lyricist Lounge, which was, a show on MTV. And before that was always a platform for a lot of artists that made huge names for themselves, as far as like Biggie, Mobb Deep, and, whatever, Big Daddy Kane and everything. So being in the city, I said, man, there's a lot of talent. And I started doing these open mics that featured graffiti, hip hop, battles, spoken word, comedy. And I started with my clientele and I was like, all right, I can make money behind my chair as well as charge like a $5 cover at the time and make a little bit of extra. So now I'm making some money through club promotion as well as I'm making money at the barbershop. And that transitioned into me turning it into a nice big stage event, which led me to start doing nightclubs in downtown Fort Myers, such as Club Level and, everything else. So there was a time in my life where I was like, win the promoter, right? But
Yeah,
I
that's how we cross
always,
paths.
right. That's what was like, when people knew me, but at the same time, while I was making all that money as a promoter and behind, I never stopped working behind my barber chair. So I was still cutting hair and keeping that relationship. And as soon as I made enough money, because I couldn't get a loan, I didn't have the credit at the time, and I knew I had a dream of opening up my own barbershop. As soon as I started saving enough money by combining two incomes, I was able to invest into my first barbershop.
And you know what I love is the fact that, like I said, that's how we cross paths was in the music world, in the promotions world, because with the magazine, we kind of have the same vision, which is providing a platform for independent artists because there's so much talent out here. And I saw
Mm-hmm.
that once you opened your shop, you brought pretty much that creativity, the graffiti, the hip hop to your shop and the
Mm-hmm.
decor and the layout. Was that strategic to bring that in, or was just like, this is part of my nature, this is my vibe, I'm just gonna keep going with that?
Yeah, it was definitely strategic. So it was a couple of things that I used name brand recognition because all my events had always, this was my
Yeah,
logo
yeah,
on my arm,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I remember
So I'd
that.
have those on flyers, and in the clubs, I would put business cards into the bathrooms when you'd walk into the club, so everybody saw Twin Cutz. And there was a time downtown where we were booking the city, where capacity week after week after week. So the recognition made sense. So when I was able to create enough income to start my own barbershop, I took the same name. And people call me Twin. People say, "Well, where did the name come?" People call it Twin, and I cut hair. And if I was a club promoter, they cut records, and it was like Twin Cutz. So I grabbed that name and I put on the shop. I never thought I was gonna scale and get more shops. My goal at that time was just to have one shop. So strategically, using brand name recognition, putting it on a barbershop, people drive by and be like, "Oh, that's the same guy with the promotion." People recognize it and gears traffic. As far as the aesthetics of the shop at the time, I was always a lover of art. Being from New York, I love pop art. Everywhere you go in the city, there's graffiti and all type of like just the from the trash cans to the poles, and there's always kind of stencil art. There's like paper art. I was a big fan of Basquiat is one of my favorite all-time artists. Andy Warhol, Keith Haring. These were all like big artists from the 80s, 90s that had big statement pieces that I always was a fan of. So opening up my shop, always incorporating touches of pop art and creating a clean atmosphere to invite all people was very important for
Now, let's talk real quick about the scaling part of your business. Now you have, up to 7 shops, you have them all over. How do you carry that brand recognition into these other shops, but still allowing these other shops to have their own personality?
Right. So it's kind of like the structure of still maintaining a small local mom and pops feel, but incorporating that franchise sport clips type of structure. So they have that organization, right? There's an atmosphere, there's a system that's very important for those businesses to keep moving forward. But I also like the individualism and I also like the art. So I want my shops to carry that system, and that's the only way that I'm able to kind of copy and paste each shop. But as you go to each shop kind of has its own identity as well. So they may have all the epoxy style floors, but each shop might be a little bit different color. There might be pop art on the wall, but each shop has a little bit of different variation of pop art as well. So you'll see things that kind of connect everything, but at the same time, it creates a difference. And so it's kind of how I hire for the businesses as well. Geographically, where shops are located, I look for barbers that are going to fit best, that is going to make them the most successful, as well as create the right atmosphere for each location.
I love that. And that's going to be my next question in regards to hiring. Having that many shops mean that you're, first of all, providing jobs. So you're a superhero to many, you're feeding families. But how do you go about choosing who to put in your shops, and how much input do they get into running the shop itself? Is there, like you said, a structure that they have, this is what we do, or do they each carry their own little flair to it?
Right. So at the beginning stages, when I had like one shop, it was a little bit different with the relationships that I had with barbers, to now where the brand has grown so much that I get people that reach out to me that I've never seen before, or students that know of me, or even me as a teacher, I'm able to build relationships and provide that opportunity as well. What I've learned within my business structure is to try to give everyone the opportunity to have a little bit skin in the game. So you can come in as a barber and you can develop into a manager, which you can also become a operating business partner. So I do have a small team of people that are constantly growing as I expand my business. So it's not just me anymore at this place, at this stage. I have, there's a barber who's running, I think he's got a percentage into three to four of my locations. Nice. And when he came in from his shop in Cape Coral, said, "Hey, Twin, I work at a shop. I don't see a lot of growth. I've heard a lot about your business." He started working as a barber. He turned into a manager in my McGregor location. Now he is a part owner of that location, and he's also an investment partner in a few of my other locations. So I try to create that opportunity, because in reality, freedom and time is very important for me. So if I do 5 shops by myself, I don't have time to do all the other things that inspire me. And I'm too business, and I still like to be an artist. So I look at it as, can I one day have 50 locations and even have a smaller percentage of the business, but make a small percentage of 50, or try to have a complete control of 100% of 5 to 7 locations and have no time for anything else.
And I was also going to ask, now, being that, you're following your purpose, you're walking in your path, you're opening doors for many. How do you handle it when life still comes at you with the challenges? I know you went through, you went through some hard battles in life. Did you ever step back and look at, like, wow, like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing, like, why me? Do you ever get angry at life, like, but I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm not cutting corners, but I'm still being hit left and right by this? So how do you handle life's challenges while trying to create this empire?
I try to tell myself daily, because I'm human, and I'd lie to you if I said emotions didn't bother me at times. But as I've grown, the concept of being better and not bitter, and also telling myself that do not get angry over things you have no control over. And if it's not health challenges at times, if it's not relationships with people within the business that sometimes doesn't work out the way that you want, and there's separation amongst people, and there's always something, to even mechanical issues, to even like pandemic issues, to hurricane issues. There's always things being thrown at me. So I have to tell myself there's always a solution. And by me telling myself there's always a solution and bringing myself to the now, and not avoiding those things or not forgetting about those things, but taking a second to digest those things and accept it, and look at it at all angles, and even how I can maneuver differently, and giving it time, then I'm able to say, okay, what is next? And I think that's what's helped me time and time again through this, constant journey of
I love that.
Growth.
Now, let's talk briefly about your teaching. You're an instructor as well. Not only you're changing lives, you're an artist, you're a business owner, but you're also an instructor as well. So tell us about that part of the journey and what took you to that lane.
Yeah, it's funny. Never thought maybe I would get into the teaching lane, especially the type of student I was in school. I was never inspired by schoolwork. I always was creative. I always liked art. And I think, back in 2010, 2011, I started seeing things on, social media was starting to get a little bit more growth and more movement and more visual. And I started seeing that they were doing, barber battles in other cities, and there was more opportunities. And I started investing in myself and started going to these places and realizing that there's a whole circle of people that are very excited about doing the same thing that you do. And I always look at that as when you're in the same circle in life and you're around the same people every day, sometimes you get stagnant because the people are comfortable at what they're doing. Mm-hmm. So visually seeing this and being around it sparked some interest. And I did it for about a year on my own dime, spent money to go to different cities, to different hair shows. And again, going back to the importance of relationships and meeting people and speaking to people and supporting people and buying, I wasn't just going up and asking, what can I get? It was going up to people that I recognized and respected and liked their art. And I would buy their hair combs, or I'd buy their barber capes, and start building those type of relationships. And just by doing that, you run into the right people, and the right people gave me the right opportunity. And one of those first companies that gave me that opportunity was a clipper company called Andis that's been around for about 100 years. Mm-hmm. And like anything else, there was there was a lot of tests that I had to do in order to actually get that position. And when I got that position, it changed a lot in my life. It started sending me out to different states, which also brought it back home. By having that type of training, getting the opportunity to work with local barber colleges in the area. And I started finding a second passion that I kind of never thought I'd really have, is to develop in mentorship with young kids, or not young kids, new professionals or future professionals. And out of everything I do, that like aha moment with students, when you just give them a clipper and turn it on and their hand touches some hair and they're like, wow, I can do this. I can achieve it. That is the best feeling for me. I like that over all the stages I work on and all the places that I visit. I think I will always love that aspect of teaching.
Now, one last question that I have, and because, time is money, I'm not trying to take too much of yours. Sure. My question is, as a teacher, as this person who's gone through so much, are you still learning? Do you still invest in yourself in regards to upping your game? Or do you feel like, nah, I got it, I'm good?
I'm a strong believer that once you feel that way, that's your start of your decline. You should always learn. No matter what I do, how many classes I've taught over 10,000 students. I visit and taught at 37 states. Between trade shows, barber schools, barber college, salons, individual training. And I still almost yearly find somebody who inspires me, pay money out of my own pocket, sit with that person, and I come as a student. And I don't talk about any of the accolades that I do or anything that I do. And I absorb everything I can learn from that person. And I'm constantly being a student, and I always take those investments I do in myself and bring it back into what I'm building, because things always change and things always grow, and there's always going to be the basics. I'm always be able to teach the basics, but there's always new techniques that if I'm not doing them behind the chair, at least I have the knowledge to speak about them and relate those type of concepts when I'm speaking to people to help them get where they need to get in life.
Absolutely. Now, in wrapping up, give me the 3 major keys to remember as an entrepreneur, as a creative, as somebody chasing a dream. What are the 3 major keys that's going to keep you grounded and get you there?
3 major keys is invest in yourself. We just touched on that. If you have a passion in life or have a creative journey, don't be afraid to invest in yourself. And investing in yourself doesn't mean financially. It means, again, getting out there wherever you can, building relationships, not being shy, not being afraid to talk to people. The second key is you have to offer as well as receive. Don't always look for people to give you stuff. You have to also, when you sit at the table, what can you provide for somebody and make it equal for both of you? If you go into a situation and you're always looking for yourself, you're going to wonder why you're always running in circles and never getting where you need to get to. And the third reason is your why. Find a why in your life. Mine was having a child, you know, being a father straight out of high school, and always looking back saying, hey, there's a serious responsibility that I need to do in my life in order to provide. But if your why is one day I want to own a yacht, that could be your why. But figure out what your why is. Your why is going to drive you to where you want to be.
I love it. I love it. Twin, listen, you've just poured so much like into this conversation that you're going to be sharing with, that you've shared with myself and share with our readers. And I thank you so much for taking the time and speaking to me. I was on my live, so I'm going to see if there was any questions that anybody had in regards to, but let's see here, but I'm not going to hold you over.
Okay, I got a little bit of time, so it's fine.
Okay. Yeah, but I'm gonna go ahead and transcribe this into print. I'm also gonna use some of the videos for promo. I've had a lot of barbers hit me up so far with the issue, but I think it's gonna be dope. I'm gonna make sure I have copies for all the different locations, and not just
Yeah.
you. So anyone else that you have relationships with that want to get copies, I just, you know, we want to get your story, your journey. I think it's very important to share with others, because a lot of us who have watched you, like myself, you know, we were around the same time where I was heavy into the networking game, providing platforms for independent artists, open
Right.
mics, and so on. So it's so motivating to watch someone who kept at it, who was consistent at it, who followed the formula and it works. So it's like, in life, you kind of want to go with what works. And it's like to speak to someone that you can see that, hey, if you hang in there and you work hard and you hold on to that dream, it answers back to you. So thank you so much for like just your story and sharing it with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I thank you for providing a platform for not just me, but a lot of barbers out there, and the opportunity to read about it and focusing on our community in this world, you know. And my advice to even those barbers, hey, take advantage. And this is what I was talking about, invest in yourself. Right now, you have an opportunity to share your story if you're up and coming, and always go with there's profit and patience. There's too many people looking for a quick dollar, but the profit comes with patience. Take your time. I started my journey in 1999, no social media, but the lessons I've learned throughout the time is memorable. It's like me taking a course at FGCU, all the lessons that I learned and all the losses. 99 I started, 2010 was my first shop. There's a big gap of me working, hustling, and grinding, and from 2010 to 2023 as a business owner, the ups and downs. You know, as long as you stick to your goal, follow what you want, and be patient about it, trust me, you'll get exactly where you need to go.